I never thought a quiet Saturday morning could change the entire mood of my life in Willow Ridge, but that was before the HOA came after me for something as harmless as fishing. I remember the air being especially still that morning. The lake behind my house shimmered like a sheet of brushed metal, barely disturbed except for the occasional ripple from the breeze. It was the kind of ordinary, peaceful day I moved here for, or so I thought. I had my cooler, my old fishing rod, and a folding chair planted in the grass like a flag claiming territory. But apparently, to the Willow Ridge Homeowners Association, I was committing a crime of historic proportions. The chaos started with a voice I had come to recognize even before turning around. A shrill, slicing tone that could cut drywall. "Excuse me." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting out a long breath. Of course, Karen. Her real name was Margaret, but everyone called her Karen because she practically trademarked the attitude. She marched toward me, arms crossed hard enough to limit blood flow. Her short blonde bob bounced with each furious step. "You can't be doing that here," she snapped. I kept my voice even. "Doing what?" She gestured dramatically at the fishing line. "Attracting wildlife. Damaging community property. Violating Section 8, Paragraph C of the Willow Ridge Lakeside Regulation." I blinked. "By fishing?" "Yes, by fishing," she said, as though the mere word was vulgar. "We cannot have residents disrupting the ecosystem." I looked out at the water. A duck floated lazily by, profoundly unbothered. "I'm just catching base," I said. "It's catch and release. I'm not exactly dynamite fishing out here." Karen didn't care. Karen never cared. She pulled out her phone like a sheriff revealing a badge. "I'm reporting this to the HOA immediately." And she did, right in front of me. I tried to shake off the irritation, but by the time I returned home, there was already an email waiting in my inbox. Violation notice, a $120 fine, and a warning about further consequences if I repeated the offense. For fishing, on the lake that technically bordered my own backyard. Still, I kept calm. I emailed the board politely, explained the situation, and even cited the community guidelines, which, conveniently, made no mention of fishing whatsoever. I thought logic might work. I was wrong. The next morning, I walked outside to find 2 police cruisers parked near the lake. 2 officers stood beside Karen, who was waving her arms like an air traffic controller guiding them toward me. "There," she barked. "That's the one. He refuses to stop engaging in dangerous activities on community property." One of the officers approached me. "Sir, we received a call about unauthorized activity near the water." My jaw clenched. "You're kidding." Karen wasn't. She was glaring at me triumphantly, as if she had just stopped a bank robbery. The officers looked embarrassed. It was clear they had better things to do. But procedure was procedure. I explained calmly. I showed them the rod, the chair, the little tackle box of lures. Nothing dangerous. Nothing harmful. Still, Karen kept pushing. "He's been warned," she said. "He thinks he's above the rules. He's endangering our wildlife and attracting stray animals. Last week I saw a raccoon." "A raccoon?" The officer looked at her. "Ma'am, raccoons exist." "It was near my house," she insisted. The officer sighed. "Sir," he said to me gently, "we're not giving a citation, but it might be best if you talk this out with your HOA." I nodded, thanked him, and he walked away shaking his head. Karen shot me a look of smug victory. "This is your last warning," she said. Then she stormed off, satisfied. That was the moment something in me snapped. Something small, something subtle, but absolutely decisive. I realized there was no negotiating with people like her. No appealing to common sense. No reasoning. Only action. So I took action. Serious, calculated action. Over the next few weeks, I did nothing to provoke the HOA. I kept my head down, acted quiet, obedient, invisible, while behind the scenes, I started making calls, pulling property records, reviewing zoning laws, and contacting a modest but motivated real estate firm. The lake wasn't part of the public park. It wasn't owned by the HOA either. It belonged to a private owner who lived 2 states away. An older man who inherited the land and wanted nothing more than to finally unload it. He and I had a very pleasant conversation. A shockingly pleasant conversation. "I'd be grateful if someone took it off my hands," he said. I made an offer. A reasonable offer. He accepted. The paperwork took less than a month. By the end of it, the lake, the entire lake, was mine. All 42 acres of water, running right up behind the homes of everyone in Willow Ridge. And I waited. I waited patiently for the next HOA email, because I knew it was coming. It arrived 3 days later. Another violation. Another $120 fine. This time for loitering by the water. I stared at the email and smiled. For the first time since moving here, I smiled. Then I sent the HOA a reply. Attached was a scanned copy of the property deed. I kept the email short. Please direct all future concerns regarding lake access to the new property owner. Me. I hit send. Chaos broke out 20 minutes later. My phone lit up with notifications. Emails, texts, voicemails, every single one from a board member. Then came the knocks on my door. Loud, aggressive, unrelenting. At the front of the furious crowd, Karen. Of course. Her face was beet red, her lips pressed into a furious line. You can't do this, she hissed the moment I cracked the door. I already did, I said. This lake is community property, she snapped. No, I said. It was private property. Now it's my private property. She shook her head violently. We have rights. Actually, I said calmly, you don't. But you do have a problem. She blinked. What problem? I leaned against the doorframe. The fishing ban? The fines? The harassment? Well, I decided to implement new access rules for the lake. Her posture stiffened. What rules? I smiled. HOA members are banned from entering, approaching, touching, viewing, or breathing too close to the lake without written permission. Gasps erupted behind her. You can't be serious, someone shouted. Oh, I am. You can't ban the whole neighborhood. Karen shrieked. Actually, I said, I can. She pointed an accusing finger at me. This is retaliation. This is harassment. No, I said. This is a property owner setting reasonable boundaries. You'll regret this, she spat. Then she stormed away with the crowd following behind her like a cluster of angry bees. Later that night, I stood on my back porch, looking out over the still reflecting water. It felt peaceful again, but the peace didn't last long. Not with Willow Ridge. Not with people like Karen. Because the next morning, when I walked outside to drink my coffee, there were signs. Big, bold signs staked into the ground along the property line. Community access. Do not block. Lake rights are for everyone. And my personal favorite. Stop the tyranny. I almost spit out my coffee. Behind the signs, a group of neighbors huddled together, whispering angrily. Karen stood front and center, her expression set with the confidence of someone who fully believed she was the hero of her own story. We're not letting you bully this community, she called out the moment she saw me. You started this, I reminded her. I enforced the rules, she corrected sharply. You reacted like a child. I stepped closer, keeping my tone even. And what exactly is this supposed to accomplish? She raised her chin. We're filing a formal challenge. A petition. A complaint with the county. That lake was part of this community long before you came here. I let out a slow breath. Karen, you don't want to do this. Oh yes, she said, eyes blazing. We do. A murmur of agreement rippled behind her. The situation was escalating fast. Too fast. But part of me wasn't surprised. This was Willow Ridge. This was Karen. This was exactly what I expected. As I walked back toward my house, I could feel their eyes burning into my back. Their resentment. Their anger. Their absolute unwillingness to admit they were wrong. I had a feeling this was only the beginning. Because people like Karen never backed down. And I wasn't planning to either. Not now. Not after everything. The lake was mine. And the neighborhood had just declared war. The morning after the neighborhood protest, I woke up to the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel outside my bedroom window. I hadn't even had coffee yet, but the unmistakable pitch of Karen's voice filtered through the glass. She was talking loudly on purpose. She wanted me to hear. Well, if he thinks he can pull a stunt like that and just get away with it, she announced to whoever was unlucky enough to be standing near her. He's in for a very rude awakening. There was another voice, Barbara, one of the board members. She always sounded like she had a cold, even in the middle of summer. We need to be careful, Karen, she said quietly. He legally owns the lake now. Karen scoffed. I don't care what papers he waved around. He can't just take something the whole community uses. That lake practically belongs to us. Barbara hesitated. Well, technically, Karen snapped. He's in violation of at least 6 community values. Probably more. I rubbed my forehead. Community values? That wasn't even a category in the HOA rules. But Karen didn't need categories. Karen created categories. I walked to the kitchen, put on a pot of coffee, and tried to pretend it wasn't happening. But by the time I opened my blinds, the group outside had grown. Not huge, maybe 8 people, but large enough to be obnoxious. They were blocking part of the shared walking path, holding papers, clipboards, and homemade signs. The kind of group that screams, "Petition," before anyone even mentions it. And right at the center of them, her arms crossed so tightly it looked painful, stood Karen. She saw me the moment I pulled the curtain back. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just stared with that universal look all Karens share, righteous fury mixed with the unshakable belief that they are absolutely, unquestionably correct. By the time I stepped outside, coffee mug in hand, the group had marched right up to my driveway. Karen thrust a clipboard forward. "We're giving you one last chance to reverse your decision," she said. "Sign this acknowledgement that the lake is a shared amenity, remove your so-called ban, and restore community privileges immediately." I took a slow sip of coffee. "No." Karen blinked. "Excuse me." "No." A collective gasp rippled through the group. Karen's eye twitched. "You don't even want to hear what we're demanding?" "I already know what you're demanding," I said. "And the answer is still no." She pressed her lips together. "You're being unreasonable." "I bought a lake," I said. "That seems pretty reasonable to me." She lifted her chin. "Well, this community won't tolerate selfishness." "That's ironic," I said. Karen's eyes narrowed. "We're escalating this," she announced. "You've left us no choice." I nodded. "Do what you need to do." She turned sharply, her shoes crunching dramatically on the gravel. The group followed her, muttering. A few glanced back at me with apologetic expressions, but no one said anything. No one ever did. Not when Karen was involved. By noon, things had already taken a turn. A new email from the HOA appeared in my inbox. This one was written in a tone that tried, and failed, to sound professional. "We have received multiple complaints about your recent actions regarding the lake. You are hereby notified that restricting access to common community resources is a violation of Willow Ridge Community Harmony Principle Number 5. Please remove all self-imposed barriers and reinstate community access within 48 hours or face further action." Community Harmony Principle Number 5. They were really stretching now. As far as I could remember, Principle Number 5 was about maintaining a friendly atmosphere. It said nothing about lakes. It said nothing about property ownership. And it definitely didn't mention anything about harmony being enforced through threats. I called the HOA office. No one answered. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. Fine. If they wanted to make this a legal matter, I could play along. I forwarded the email to my attorney, adding only a simple note. "They're trying something. Please advise." The reply came within minutes. "They have no authority over your land. Do not respond to their demands. Document everything." Good, because I had a feeling things were about to get much worse. By late afternoon, they did. I heard pounding. Hard, angry pounding. At first, I thought it was someone's construction project. But then I realized it was coming from the trail behind my house. The lake. I walked outside and froze. A group of neighbors, at least 10 this time, were standing along the edge of the water with hammers, wooden stakes, and ropes. They were building something. Karen stood in the middle of them like a foreman. When she noticed me, her face brightened with smug triumph. "What are you doing?" I called out. She gestured proudly to the structure. "We're rebuilding the community dock," she said. "The one you unlawfully removed." I blinked. There was no community dock. "There should have been," she said sharply. "And now there will be again." I exhaled slowly. "You know you're trespassing." Karen let out a laugh. A loud, fake, exaggerated laugh. "Trespassing? On community land?" I pointed to the ground. "That's not community land. That's my land." She rolled her eyes. "You really believe a piece of paper gives you the right to block your neighbors?" "Yes," I said. "That's how property works." She waved me off. "No one cares what your paperwork says. This lake belongs to all of us. And we're taking it back." I pulled out my phone. Karen scoffed. "Go ahead. Call the police." Again. "I wasn't planning to," I said. She frowned. "What are you doing then?" I opened the camera app. "Documenting," I said, like my attorney advised. Her face tightened. "You wouldn't dare bring lawyers into this." "Oh, I'd absolutely dare." A murmur spread through the group. Some people lowered their hammers. Others shifted uncomfortably. But Karen doubled down. "You think anyone here is afraid of your attorney?" she challenged. No, I said. But you should be. Karen clenched her jaw. We're not stopping. And they didn't. They kept hammering, laying down planks, building a crooked, uneven dock that jutted into the water like an insult. And I filmed every second of it. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He was polite, professional, a little awkward. Sir, he said, we received a complaint that you threatened your neighbors with legal action. I stared at him. You mean? I told them I have an attorney. He sighed. Look, I know this is ridiculous, but I have to follow up. I showed him the videos, the trespassing, the construction, the signs they'd staked onto my land. He watched silently, eyebrows climbing higher with each minute. Okay, he said. This is the lot. Tell me about it. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. I'll file the report. You're well within your rights here. What about them? He glanced toward the lake. They'll get a warning. Maybe more. Karen won't take that well, I said. He laughed under his breath. Yeah, we know. By the time he left, word had already spread. Neighbors glared at me from their driveways. People whispered when I walked by. Karen paced back and forth on the sidewalk, arms flapping with outrage. Every time she saw me, she pointed and muttered to whoever stood next to her. It was only a matter of time before she escalated again. And she did. At sunset, I stepped outside to bring in a package, and there she was, standing at the edge of my driveway, hands on her hips like a disgruntled gargoyle. We had a meeting, she said. Congratulations, I replied. The HOA board is filing a motion to revoke your residency. I blinked. My residency? She nodded sharply. You're a threat to the community. I stared at her in disbelief. You can't revoke someone's residency. This isn't an apartment complex. We have options, she insisted. No, I said. You think you have options? Karen crossed her arms. Mark my words, she said. You're done here. She turned and marched away. But I noticed something she didn't mean to show. A small tremor in her hands. Just enough to betray the truth. She wasn't confident. She wasn't secure. She was scared. Of losing control. Of losing face. Of losing the battle she had started. And that fear meant she was about to do something drastic. Something reckless. Something very, very stupid. I just didn't know what yet. But I could feel it coming. Like the pressure in the air before a storm. And in Willow Ridge, especially with Karen, storms always got worse before they got better. This one was only just beginning. And the lake, my lake, was turning into the center of a war neither of us was ready to walk away from. Not yet. Not even close.